Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Wilson, and many of you might recognize my voice as the voice behind 365Ninja.com. I'm really excited to be kicking off our series of webinars that we're having over the next couple of days, 365 Ninja Live. We've got some great sessions up at live.365ninja.com for you to check out. Even if you can't attend, please do register because you'll get early access to the recordings of the sessions that I'm sending out via follow-up emails. And then just a little bit more about me. Like I said, I am creating daily content on 365ninja.com that I know a lot of our audience is already familiar with. I have a background in training and writing, and for several years I was with Microsoft as a content editor of partner training materials. So I come at Office 365 from an end user perspective in my day-to-day life and as an administrator on 365 Ninja. Now let's jump into our presentation here. So we're talking today about reinventing productivity, and we've heard this phrase reinvent productivity with Microsoft for only really about the past year or two. And it might sound kind of like corporate buzzwords or, corporate lingo that doesn't mean much, but actually Microsoft has been really transparent lately in showing us how they're actually planning to achieve this goal and really what the goal actually is in the first place. So basically, reinventing productivity has to do with making how we work more effective and more successful. And even though Microsoft uses this phrase as central to their, company-wide mission, you can see Satya Nadella's quote here: "We will reinvent productivity to empower every person and every organization on the planet to do more and achieve more." So it goes across all of Microsoft, but it really does have a lot to do with Office 365, and that's something that I'll think you'll see in this presentation. So we're going to focus on how reinventing productivity applies to our work life. So what does it mean in our team-based workplaces? We're going to look at meetings, content creation and collaboration, and some of the ways that we now have to gain new insights and discoveries with this vast amount of information that we have access to. We're also going to take a look at some of the opportunities for individual productivity that we have with Office 365 using regular everyday tools like Outlook, OneNote, and OneDrive. So we have a lot to cover. Let's go ahead and get started with our first topic, meetings, because I know that it applies to pretty much everyone in the audience on a daily basis. We all have meetings to go to, some of us more than others. So let's talk about the virtual meeting. Now, most meetings these days have at least one virtual attendee, as our workplaces have shifted to, having a lot of remote workers. No longer is everybody in the office in the same room every single day. But something that I've certainly found in my own life, and you guys might have found as well, video is still rarely used. So in audio-only meetings, like most of the ones that we tend to have, meaning and context can be lost. We all know that we convey a lot via body language. So that virtual attendee or attendees are missing out on a really, big part of the meaning of the meeting. But the Office 365 team is really focusing on improving this for us. And just to give you an idea of scale, why Microsoft is focusing on this, there are 830 million meetings scheduled with Office 365 each month. So obviously the demand is there for modernizing our meetings. And as Office GM Julia White said earlier this year at the Ignite conference, video meetings need to be as simple and seamless as walking into a conference room and sitting down. And like I said earlier, in my own life, I don't use video meetings very much when I'm using Skype for Business. And just to share a personal anecdote, when I was preparing for 365 Ninja Live, I had a lot of meetings with the presenters to go over presentations and talk about logistics, and we didn't actually use video in our meetings. It was just not something that we discussed, and nobody turned their webcam on, so we just used audio. And so there needs to be some sort of way for it to become easier for us. Now, what does that actually mean? What is happening right now? I would point to the increased focus on Skype for Business. Every meeting in Office 365 now includes a Skype meeting automatically when you create it, so users will always have the virtual meeting option, and then there's always the option to turn on the webcam. And if anyone's interested in learning more in depth about Skype for Business, we have a great session tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So be sure to register for that one at live.365ninja.com. So next up, let's talk about calendar sharing and availability. This is another aspect of running meetings smoothly. And this is another area where I would like to share my personal experience preparing for this webinar. In those meetings I was referring to that I scheduled with the presenters, I'm guilty of doing a lot of the availability sharing the quote-unquote old way. We didn't use video in our Skype meetings, and likewise we exchanged calendar availability by simply emailing back and forth. I might have emailed someone saying, I'm available at 2 tomorrow. They write me back and say, I can't do 2, but how about 1? I say yes, but then right at that same moment, my availability changes, and it just generates a lot of email, a lot of manual work, and we have to start doing better. And we're armed now with more tools to do better from the Office 365 team. So one option that kind of goes along with that you see here on the slide on the left-hand side is Invite, a mobile app that just came out recently that allows users to automate some of that back and forth that I'm referring to. So simplifies the process, doesn't generate a ton of emails, and there's a lot of third-party solutions that are doing this as well, that are handling the scheduling issue really well. But I'm sure that with the Office 365 team's focus on modern meetings, we're going to see more and more native solutions to deal with this. All right, so let's move on to content creation and collaboration, which has also been a huge focus in Office 365. So you may have heard this from Microsoft, this saying or phrase, email attachments as we know them are going to change. We're going to get rid of email attachments, they've said. And that's kind of hard for a lot of us to imagine. And what I'm finding that it really means is not that we'll never attach anything via email, but that the back and forth emailing of different versions of the same attachment won't be as necessary anymore and may not be necessary at all. So we see some examples of this moving towards a new way with the capability of sharing files directly from where they're stored in OneDrive for Business or SharePoint. That's become really easy and intuitive. You can send a notification via email, so that takes care of the initial sharing. You don't have to do the kind of old-fashioned, at this point, method of opening a new email, clicking the attachment, clicking the paperclip icon, navigating to your attachment. Maybe you attached the wrong one, you have to do it over again. Now you can just share it right from where you've stored it in the cloud. And you can also now collaborate with others without the traditional email attachment with the addition of real-time co-authoring to Office 2016. And this is something that we were already able to do in Office Online, but not everybody uses Office Online. Some of us use desktop apps primarily. So now that Office 2016 offers this capability, once we've all upgraded to 2016 and everyone's using either that or Office Online, we're all going to be able to do this true real-time co-authoring, and that's going to really disrupt our old tradition of email attachments and emailing version 1, version 2, version 3 of the same document. We can all be working on one document, and we might have some sort of versioning scheme, but it's not going to require as much overhead of communication. But we all need OneDrive for Business to be working really smoothly for this to work. So for collaboration that we've been talking about to be possible, OneDrive for Business has to be not just functional, but really improved from where we've seen it in the past, to be honest. And it's getting there. So hopefully you all saw that the next generation OneDrive for Business Sync client is now in preview, and that is promised to have improved reliability. You can now do selective sync, so you don't have to sync every single one of these files, and you see those checkboxes there in the graphic. There's no longer going to be a limit to the number of files, nor a limit to the file size that you have to upload to OneDrive for Business. And it works for the Mac, so there's a sync client for the Mac. And there's also a better browser experience when you're using OneDrive on your browser. I know I do that a lot, so it's nice to have folders, icons. You can move things around very, very easily now. You can toggle back and forth between views. There's great previewing options. So hopefully you've all been enjoying that as well. And then earlier this year, we saw some great improvements around Outlook and OneDrive integration. Things like the ability to save files directly to OneDrive, like you see in the picture here. You can click a drop-down menu next to your file and save them all to OneDrive with one click. That's really great. No more dragging and dropping. You certainly still can, but the one-click option is really, really handy. And then we've also seen some things like an auto notification that prompts you to use OneDrive instead of email when you're sharing really large files. And what all of this comes down to, I think, is just that the overall Office 365 system is coming out with these improvements that are moving us toward this vision of redefined productivity. And now let's talk about insights and discoveries. So in this section, we're going to talk about a few Office 365 products that give us new insights into our work-related information, as well as allowing us to make new discoveries. So beyond just finding information, although that is important, we all have this huge amount of information at our fingertips and accessible to us. Finding the exact piece of information that we need can be challenging sometimes. But then even beyond that, actually understanding the important connections between pieces of information and what's really relevant to me, what's really actually important, what actually matters to my work. So one great product that we've seen recently come out is Office Delve, and underneath that is Office Graph. Some of you have seen this slide in a previous presentation, but let's just kind of recap. What is Office Graph? So machine learning technology from Microsoft that crawls across Office 365 and maps content, interactions, and other information. And then on the front end, we have Delve, which surfaces information that's most relevant to you or to me, determined by Office Graph. And that information is surfaced in a really familiar interface, really easy to use. And then just to actually look at what information. So OneDrive for business files, email attachments. Those are both things that you have stored for yourself and that have been shared with you. Yammer posts and more. And I'm expecting that even more information will be categorized and surfaced with Office Graph as the tool grows. Then we have Yammer, Office 365's enterprise social network. I know a lot of us use it, but some of our organizations are not using it yet. But social networking and just that format of sharing and collaborating and working is part of our personal lives for most of us, and so it's really desirable for it to be part of our work lives as well. And Yammer incorporates elements of a lot of the themes that we've already been talking about. So it's a place where team members can communicate. You can converse about projects or documents you're working on, ask each other questions. Of course, it's accessible from anywhere. It's very easy to access on any device. And it provides visibility across your entire network so you can discover new information. You can, eavesdrop on conversations basically and find new information that you need in a method that's really convenient. Another awesome tool is Sway. So Sway is that interactive presentation tool that is kind of like an amazing version of PowerPoint, basically. And unfortunately, I'm not using Sway for this presentation. Maybe in the next webinar series, you'll see a Sway. And you get great looking presentations, but if you're using Sway with Office 365, and you don't have to, you can use it with your free Microsoft account, but if you're using it in your Office 365 for business or education, you're going to get elements from across Office 365 that have been integrated into Sway. So the Office Graph is in Sway, essentially helping you add relevant content really quickly. You can embed Office documents. Say you want to put Excel charts and graphs into your Sway. You can do that very easily. And you have real-time co-authoring, just like you do in other Office applications, in this new tool. And then even though these aren't technically in line with Office 365 yet, they're not integrated yet, I I just wanted to mention a couple really awesome new products and applications that continue this productivity theme, like the Surface Hub, which is this big futuristic conferencing system, or GigJam, which is a new service that demoed at WPC earlier this year, that it's almost like this very high-level, project-level collaboration tool. So not just on the document or conversation level, but across a team, across an entire project, an entire ecosystem of tasks. And these are really, really innovative, really cool tools that show that the spirit of innovation is still really high at Microsoft. And they're producing these new tools and processes that we can pick and choose from. You know, not every organization is going to get a Surface Hub. Not every employee is going to ever need to create a sway for a presentation. But we can pick and choose from these products and applications to enhance our work. All right, so I want to talk about personal productivity. So we've been talking about business level stuff, and there's a lot to talk about in that area, but there's also processes that we can integrate into our own day-to-day lives that make us more productive. Things in Office 365 that we can pick and choose for our own individual tasks. And I'm only going to call out four different areas here. And these are the types of things that we post on, we write and record a lot on 365ninja.com. So there are always more tips and tricks there that you can check out, go browse through, keeping with this productivity theme. So let's start out here with the idea of Office 365 on any device. So if you need to access Office 365 from your iPhone, from your tablet, you can. You're not restricted to just using a PC as you had been in the past. Even 10 years ago, if you wanted to access your Office files or use Word, use Excel, use Outlook, you were pretty much contained to your PC. But that's no longer the case, and the cross-platform experiences continue to evolve and get better. We see improvements coming out for iOS apps regularly, for example. And then next, most of us spend a lot of time in our Outlook inbox. So I just wanted to talk for a little bit about the tools that are coming out in Office 365 that help you manage your email in a much smarter way to allow you to be productive in the rest of your work life. Just a few examples here. So one thing that I love lately is the sweep tool in Outlook on the web. So sweep gives you a really easy way to set rules and mail retention policies, things that actually Office desktop users have probably been familiar with for a while, but it's great for things like maybe you get a daily deal or coupon emails and they expire after a short amount of time, so you want to make sure that they don't stick around in your inbox or in any folder longer than 10 days. You can do that with Sweep. It's a very easy rule to set. And then similar kind of tool, but with a slightly different purpose, is Clutter. So Clutter sorts out your less important, less relevant mail automatically, and it learns and improves over time. And we now see Clutter in the desktop as well as the web versions of Outlook. And then there's more and more third-party add-ins and third-party tools and integrations that will appear right in your inbox. So maybe you're working with a CRM system in day-to-day life, or you have some sort of documentation tool or an HR tool. A lot of those things now have Outlook plugins, so you can, alongside managing your email, you can work with your regular tools. So basically, just a lot of ways to improve your workflow over time, to connect Outlook with things that you're doing outside of Outlook, and to allow you to spend less time simply sorting and reading and categorizing your email. And then next, I wanted to mention to those of you who use the desktop versions of Office 2013 or Office 2016. That's something that I do, so I certainly identify with those who don't really use the browser very often. Excuse me. So a lot of Office 365 subscriptions have Office 2013 or 2016, and there's a lot of customizations that you're able to do with those apps that really save time and increase productivity. For example, you can customize the ribbon, you can customize the quick access toolbar. There's all sorts of default behavior that you can change, you can modify to fit your needs that really will save you time and help you work smarter on a daily basis. And then last but not least, I have to mention OneNote, especially the 2013 edition of OneNote, which is actually free and available for all, not just those who have Office 365 subscriptions. It's one of my personal favorites. I'm on to OneNote 2016 now, but all of the features are still there. It's one of those rare tools that can be used in all types of businesses, for all types of tasks and projects across, all levels of personnel. You can really make it work for you. So if you do use OneNote, you know that there's such a wide variety of features, and it also integrates with other tools across Office 365, like Outlook, for example. You can use your OneNote tasks to set, you can send them right to Outlook. If you use Outlook tasks, you'll see things appear there from OneNote. So if that's the way you schedule and manage your time, you can use both of those tools together beautifully. And I also wanted to mention OneNote for teachers, since I know we have a lot of educators in the audience today. The Office team has really invested in OneNote as an educational tool, and you can find a lot of great resources for using OneNote in the classroom. All right, so I could go on with more ways that Office 365 is reinventing productivity, but for the sake of time, we'll stop here. I think we covered how the idea fits into Microsoft's overall Office 365 offering, as well as some particulars of how we see reinvented productivity play out in our lives with tools like Yammer and Sway. And the movement towards more modern meetings and more modern ways of collaborating and sharing information. All of those elements sort of sum up and encompass this idea of reinventing productivity. And then I want to close out by mentioning we still have 5 more great sessions in 365NinjaLIVE. So visit us at live.365ninja.com to register for more sessions. And even if you can't attend, go ahead and register, because that will give you early access to the recordings and recaps so you don't miss any information. Thanks everyone again so much for attending, and I'll see you in the next session.